Oh, hey, got it. Look at this.
I think I had my window open for too long. We'll pause for a moment while we. How was your vacation? While we're waiting.
Great. Oh, yep, it says meeting now streaming live. Oh, there we go. Oh, and Zoom has to do a something or other, or YouTube does.
Pause. Okay. All right. I think we're good. I'm not going to look at that though. Okay. Excellent. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Gray Paper podcast. I'm glad to have Karen back. I'm Mike with Gray Paper Legal.
And I'm Karen Westwood, Director of the Hennepin County Law Library.
As we do every week, we're here to answer the question, what was the most interesting legal question of the week? And we have a couple this week, though lighter on the research side of things for me this week. And I think you were also sunbathing, maybe. I
well, I was in Pittsburgh on vacation, so I wasn't sunbathing, but I was out of town and not getting reference questions in.
Excellent. But you did have an interesting legal research question this week, it sounds like.
Well, I am teaching an advanced legal research class this summer over at St. Thomas Law School, and I haven't taught in 7 years. So every week,
really?
I'm uncovering more things that I think are intuitive to folks like us who've researched for quite a while, but maybe aren't like an immediate go-to thought for students who are new to this. So yesterday we were talking about trial court research and MnCRO, the Minnesota database of trial court pleadings and documents. And I was telling them that, like, my pro tip of the class was, if there's a chart involved, use it, because there's nothing more beautiful than someone who's compiled a chart that explains to you what's going on. And my first example was this MnCRO chart about what is and isn't available on this public access database of trial decisions. And I knew there was a chart. Mike and I just went through this exercise this morning. It is not, I don't think it's very easy to find right on the website. But once you know it's there, you can dig through it. So if you go to the court website, as Mike's showing, you scroll down, you see all these like FAQs and this and that and overviews and contact us. And eventually, I think it's on this screen, if you scroll down.
Yeah, I think it is worth maybe walking through the steps.
To go back to the beginning, sure.
I think I've seen this chart before, way back when they introduced it, but I couldn't remember how to get to it either. The website it's got a lot of text, it's got a lot of valuable information, and probably 4 different ways of finding things. But mincourts.gov, and then when you click access case records, you're brought to.
Well, yeah, first you're brought to. Yeah, let's go through it, because it's remarkable how many clicks you have to.
How many layers there are. Yeah.
Right. So you go to access case records, then you choose trial court, and then you choose MnCRO.
We call it MnCRO, it's MCRO.
Yeah, or MCRO. And then if you actually wanted to do a search, you'd have to hit access MnCRO again, and then blah, blah, blah. But here is where there's a bunch of FAQs and an overview, and it is super helpful. But I find this to be a bit buried in here is this MCRO document and case access overview handout. And here is, I was extolling the beauty of a chart, because I often get into MnCRO and I wonder why I'm not finding something. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I can't remember. Is it this kind of proceeding? Is it because there are juveniles involved? Or do I just have a stupid search and I need to look harder? And so this chart just lays it right out. So they have this section, public case types not available in MnCRO, and it just walks right through, and it makes sense when you see it, right? These CHIPS proceedings, child in need of protective services, domestic abuse, no contact orders, that kind of makes sense that those wouldn't be public, or that you wouldn't be able to access them, even though they are technically classified as public case types. Then you scroll down further and you see case types that are non-public case types, also not accessible. And they give the references for all of these. So if you question, well,
Yeah.
is it really proper that adoption proceedings aren't public? Well, then look, there are rules and statutes that inform that. So I just think it's super. And then, as a true librarian, I'm like, that way I don't have to remember things. I just have to be able to find them.
Yeah. Well, I've got my bulletin board over here. There are some things where I've got the list of the Hennepin County Law Library treatises that are available.
Right.
Yeah. That's just easier to access than browsing.
Exactly. Yep. And the ones you'll use. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
do you know this
absolutely.
other chart that's on the court website that I love? So if you go back to the main page,
Main courts.
yeah, I think probably you could search from there. And then in the court search box, which I don't love, but in this case it works, if you type in records retention. Have you used this chart, Mike?
I don't know this one.
So the third one down is the district court record retention schedule. And again, and maybe like attorneys in practice maybe don't get this question as much, but we have people doing historical research and genealogical research. And the first number of pages is sort of the theory behind records retention for government agencies and so on and so forth. And then they have pages on the development of this document. But if you scroll down, you will eventually see a table.
There it is. Nice.
Yeah, well, this is the legal authority for them having a retention schedule. But if you go down even further, yeah, I think it's this.
Nice.
Then you start seeing the record, and it even includes the internal judicial branch records. So if anyone was going to do an FOI, a FOIA request or Minnesota Data Practices request, you have an idea if the thing you're looking for is available. Even so, these are internal, like court sort of management records, but further down it'll say like adoption records, permanent. The land, things having to do with real estate tend to be permanent, but some of these other, like, I don't know, misdemeanors and yeah, here we get into civil types, minor settlements, and quiet title, right, is permanent. Torrens is permanent. Sometimes they'll indicate if documents are sent from the district court to the Historical Society or state archives. So I did a control F here and used parking because I used to use myself as the example in searching trial court records to see my offenses, but they stopped showing up. Well, now I know why.
Now we know why.
They're kept for the fiscal year and 3 years after. The same thing with my speeding ticket that's also disappeared. I have a clean slate now, Mike.
Nice. So, I see the authority is referenced here in some of them. But what is this? Just policy or
I think so. Yep. Because they're
general
not
practice. Yeah.
Yep. And then they're just other notes. This is, I'm sure, some committee at the court who's saying, yeah, will keep these paper citations for case types, and then we're going to destroy them and move them into another format. But I just think it's interesting, the destruction guidelines, and mostly charts like this help me if I can't find the thing I'm looking for and I don't understand why I'm not finding it.
Yeah.
And then I can look and see, because they destroy them, or they've gone to the Historical Society, I'm looking in the wrong place. Or I should be able to find it.
Yeah.
So.
Items like this, I'd like to know, if I was doing this work for somebody, I'd like to know, all right, must be retained permanently in their original form. or
Right.
other archival quality media. And that's a term I want to search. Like what?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that the rule? It's not listed here, and this is something that you'd want to know something about, I would think.
Right. And I think that probably other archival medium probably means scan and retain it.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you think, well, it should be the original paper, and that's all well and good unless there's a courthouse fire or something. We all know of instances where we're trying to do research and there are just gaps, and floods and fires and stuff. So
your acid-free paper is not fireproof.
right, right. Yeah.
That's a very cool resource. I thought there was also one like this in Minnesota, and I don't think I'm confusing that with other states, having to do with the privacy rules for filing of documents in MnCRO. Which items have to be redacted,
Right.
children's names, things like that. I
Yep.
can't remember the name of the document though.
You know what? We do, like in a library, right? We don't do any e-filing, but I do remember years ago when they were introducing e-filing, and I attend to CLEs about it. For sure, there was guidance on redaction. So I don't know if you did just a search in the website for redaction guidelines or something, if you'd get anything.
I thought there was a chart just like that one where it
Yep.
gave the description and a link to or perhaps not a link, but a citation to the authority.
Yeah.
Well,
I was telling my
know.
students, because you can search so much on these trial court records, and we know people use it for legitimate legal reasons all the time. But in a public law library, we also see people who use it just to snoop on their neighbors, relatives and friends.
Yeah.
And so redacting is really critical. You do not want to be the attorney who's somehow exposed someone's social security number or something. So
this is not the right term. I'll have to dig that out. And
I think redaction is your term, Mike.
Redaction.
Yeah, I think that would be in the redaction guidelines or redaction. Huh.
There's another term of art that I'm just
forgetting.
Okay. It has to do with,
well, here's preparing documents for e-filing. Look at that second item. It's a PDF. It's not. No, it's how to do it online, not what to do.
The other thing I could do is maybe just find a citation, run the citation as a search term and see what comes up to get all the other citations. Just do a quick Westlaw search for that. I have been thinking about maybe doing something like, are you familiar with Twitch TV? Where the gamers go on and they play or live streaming of gaming. They also do it on YouTube. So thinking, and there's all kinds of here's what I'm eating right now, or just chatting kind of. I was thinking of doing a 50 state survey live stream of, but I think that's got a limited audience, and so I'm actually not going to do the fishing around right now because I'm not sure. Our podcast listeners might be into that, but maybe the 50 state survey would be.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's my little sort of inspiration for the week. If it is such a thing as, if there's a chart, take a look at it, because it is likely to save you just a boatload of time. Yeah, and I think it's kind of the same principle behind those checklists and practical law, listings of things, is to really condense that information and give you citations for a deeper dive.
Yeah, these are great resources. I think I like these too for if you're doing the 50 state surveys. In Westlaw, they have similar charts.
Yeah, absolutely. Really yep. And those online tax products do that too when you're comparing tax rules across states, and yeah, those charts Charts and tables are worth their weight.
Thought I had this one, but these charts are in columns too, so they'll pick out anybody who's done a 50-state survey sort of knows how it goes. You identify an issue that's common to several states, so you add a column to your data, to your spreadsheet or whatever it is, or to your database, and it becomes a topic. And those topics are summarized also in similar to this, where you've got the common topic and a summary of what it means in that state. Super helpful. Really great. Those are really great resources.
So what was your exciting research this week?
As I said, this week I was mostly in the world of document and templates. We were doing a lot of work on that front this week, but I did catch this item from Justice Ketanji Brown when the voting rights case came down. Somebody replayed this little snippet from the oral arguments where Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was talking about a resource that I hadn't heard of. So maybe I'll just play this clip here quickly.
Oh yeah, fun. Let's.
It's 2 minutes. Tell me if it comes through for you. Can you hear it?
Can't hear it, but I can see.
I've got it silenced. That's what.
Ah.
I don't want to unmute the site because it's YouTube. And I've got it streaming. That's why we can't do it.
Right. But
we'll take a quick. That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll talk over her and listen to the watch the items at the bottom here.
The subtitles.
But she was talking about the meaning of the 14th Amendment and how we couldn't treat the 14th Amendment as a race neutral, colorblind statute. And she cites this committee, this historical document, legislative historical document, the Joint Committee, here it is, the Joint Committee on Reconstruction from 1866, which was and I just thought that was interesting. We've talked before about, the Supreme Court citing history, and the Supreme Court has been doing a lot of that, citing, documents from, before the nation was even founded. And we've had some conversations about what is the proper method of reviewing and citing to historical documents. But this one was, absolutely relevant. And, in my world where I'm sitting at, this chair comfortably all day long, if I go to the 14th Amendment and I look at the citing references, there's, a ton of them.
Right.
But in the legislative historical information, that 1866 document, highly relevant to this, is just not available. It's not.
It's listed, but it's not available, or you don't see it listed.
I don't see it. I don't see it there in the 14th in the legislative historical information.
Sure.
For that, let's say U.S. Constitution. I guess I have to specify U.S.
Yep.
Fourteenth Amendment. And you can see we were talking, I think, the other week about multiple instances of the statute showing up. And of course, you've got that here because there are so many notes of decisions. They've broken it down. So there are a ton of citing references. Whoops, it's not the one that
makes it very difficult to wade through, right?
But tons of notes of decisions, 60,000 citing references, but just 12 references to the, and of course there are. So in my world, as I'm sitting here, at the computer, I fear I'm relying too heavily on the citation network as my authority. And am I thinking critically about the meaning of these things, and I guess I can understand why the justices would look to something like this, right? Because it's specifically something that they care about is what did the framers intend when they drafted the
Right.
agreement. So I don't know, there's something in the Supreme Court library was available to them that we don't have, that their librarian was giving them.
Right.
I found it with, a Google search. The document itself is quite easy to find with a quick search in Google. It's not a mystery. If any historian in this area would say, well, duh, right?
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
something that's readily available to folks. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what is my trigger as I'm doing this kind of research to sort of think outside of my citation network and start Googling around or looking at other alternative resources. Even here, the National Archives is not where I found this document. This was after Googling it, I found it at senate.gov, art and history,
okay.
which is not a resource I would have thought to jump into.
No, and because you knew what you were looking for and that there was something valuable in it, then maybe it's worth a slog. But look this is an 835-page document, which I'm fairly certain, given how that text is replicated, is not easy or reliable to do word searching within.
That's funny. You can actually do a text search. I was surprised too. I thought, no way this was OCR'd, but it is.
It is, but like on one of those pages, it just looked so murky. I'm surprised. Like I'd be surprised if some of those words are going to show up in your find command on that next page that are so blurred. But so
right here.
I hear you. It's like again.
It's interesting. You've got the spelling wrong too.
Oh, right.
So, well, and my other thought here is I'm not sure that this is the original document. Even this is it was 1866. I'm not sure that this was the way it was originally produced.
Right.
But I don't know if you had any thoughts about thinking. We rely so heavily on things like citation networks and cross references and things like that. If it's not there, it's not part of the breadcrumb trail, and making that leap into what might not be a part of this. And in that way, I think the resources we use bias our research.
Right.
And I don't know.
Yeah, also, but like the way I was trained in doing legal research is the court cares about what the court says and what the law says.
Yeah.
So all this other stuff, that's interesting, but it's not really as important as our current Supreme Court is making it, or people want it to be. We always in legal research classes teach people how to do legislative history research. But I always want to remind them, there is a statute saying statutes are to be read on their face, basically, that a statute means what it says it means. You can't, if you don't like it, you can't go back and try to argue it meant something else. And so that really is only useful if the statute isn't clear. And I kind of feel like it gets sort of attenuated when you're going out this far, except that now we have a current U.S. Supreme Court who keeps pulling in these old historical documents and trying to prove intent. And that becomes really the question. What did they mean? Rather than what does it say? And how has it been interpreted? So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's a super valid point. My concern was, we were talking with Andrew last week from the University of Minnesota about, differences between, just commercial practice and the law in contract drafting. And he was concerned that maybe he needs to introduce more of basic commercial practice into his contract drafting courses, and we sort of hashed over that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then this week, just through my LinkedIn views, I saw that Ken Adams, who we talk about a lot on contract drafting, some poor schlub on LinkedIn said, "Hey, if you need a lawyer, I'm the guy who knows the differences between, warranties and conditions in a contract." And then Ken Adams sort of replied, Ken Adams is posting to your post about a contract. It's not usually a good thing. And this post is about, this artificial distinction between warranty and condition in U.S. law, when in the U.S. it has to do with materiality of the breach that really matters, right?
Oh, okay. Yep.
And so very interesting post. This is what was the date on this one?
Okay,
February of 2022. Yep. A little bit older, but I thought about this issue of what I don't know and thinking outside the box when I started. The warranty and condition, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from law school, but right. I've drafted lots of contracts, and that's not top of mind when I'm drafting an agreement. So I thought I'd jump in, and I thought of this exact same issue when let me go back to my query to deliver these results, because you can run a search.
Oh, sure.
For these terms. If somebody had just asked me or reminded me, law school, that there's a difference between a breach of a condition and a breach of a warranty.
Oh, sure.
And that we, that we really do care about that distinction, I would run a search and say, that is like true.
Yeah.
Right. That's this is a 1996 case. Talking, about that particular issue. There's other case law talking about the manifest differences, not my language, between the two. Sure. And there's a citation like this one here in particular. Remedies are different, citing the second restatement of contracts, and I'm done. Right. I mean, right. I've got a reliable, semi-recent resource. If you're looking at the, there's no negative history on this document. It's right. I'm not thinking about the commercial realities of what's going on here. Right. I'm looking at the law and like, well, that's the law. It's citing the second restatement of contracts. This is pretty authoritative in my view.
Sure.
Why should I look anywhere else? And I probably wouldn't.
Right.
Except that, I happen to stumble across Ken Adams. But just another situation where, now in this case, Ken Adams was talking about a case, and he and a lot of other folks were citing a case called Bombardier. And so I think in that case, you would have stumbled across it. And then, usually I am jumping out to Google for something.
Right.
And probably would have stumbled across it that way to get that additional piece of information. But it was just another situation where I thought, I can read the law, but sort of applying the reasoning to commercial realities is not something that I would have necessarily thought to do if a lawyer just came to me and said, just quick memo on this topic.
So did Ken Adams, I didn't read his post. Did he say with feet on the ground, there actually isn't much of a difference, or like what was his?
So he outlines these three. Well, and to be clear, this comes from English law originally as well. Sure. So and he acknowledges that, but he outlines three reasons why this distinction doesn't necessarily make sense. In this here, he outlines three scenarios. One's scenarios 2 and 3 are different levels of breaches, and then the U.S. he says, what matters is the materiality of the breach, not the breach,
right?
Not the. He says it's the breach that varies, not the sentence
Ah,
right? So it's
yeah,
interesting argument,
yeah,
and also that because operating is a term of art, not what's actually happening in commercial reality. So
yeah,
it's I'll drop that into the show notes as
yeah,
well.
yeah, do.
I know I'm
That's
scrolling
interesting.
through
Yeah.
it. Sale of Goods Act is a UK law,
Oh, I see. Yep.
but just one of those things where a couple of times this week where I thought, you know what, I'll be thinking more carefully about stepping outside of my citation network to get.
Right, to see if there's another angle or
Yeah,
another point of view. Yeah,
it's one of those things. I mean, usually, for as long as I've been doing research, I feel pretty comfortable saying I'm done. you
right.
know, uh, but still, there's like, am I? This
Right,
week in particular, I thought, you know what, there are things to miss. Still, it's
right. And I think there always will be, of course,
yeah,
but I think I don't know, it's a sign of a good researcher if you keep wondering. It's
yeah,
it's folks who are so certain right from the
yeah,
get-go who make me nervous about their ability to find the good law to cite. If you land
yeah,
on one case and say, "Oh, this looks great, I'll just use that," you maybe haven't done your due diligence. So,
yeah.
yeah. Well, interesting.
Yeah, and I have no research tips for that other than to say, keep your
Be
mind open,
aware.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
It was,
Keep an open mind. That's an
yeah,
excellent research tip.
yeah.
And exhibit curiosity. This is what we always say
Yes,
when we hire new
yes,
librarians. It's hard to specify that, but that's what you're looking for in a researcher, is someone
yeah,
who retains that sense of curiosity and keeps at it.
yeah. And there are, a ton of memos where the stopping point is a function of time and deadline,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and not necessarily, and it gets, it's not a rabbit hole. Well, it sort of is. I mean, like, you could keep going and going and going with different
Yeah.
theories and alternatives. Ultimately, though, you need to deliver some kind of foundation for the client, or
Right.
whoever might be that's reading your memorandum or following your research.
Right.
But you can go deep quite often with, um,
Right.
deeper than is commercially practicable.
Yeah. So
Karen,
true.
thanks again.
Thank you,
For
Mike. Always a pleasure.
what's on your plate for next week? Have you got anything exciting happening?
Well, today is our CLE that features watching a documentary and then a panel discussion. So we're
Yes,
starting at
yes.
11:15 today, an hour earlier. So that will be good fun. Next week, it's a short week for those of us in government, because the county and the state and the feds actually have declared Juneteenth a
Juneteenth.
holiday. So
Yes, yes.
that'll be nice. But I don't really have anything big. I'm preparing already for the big AALL meeting in Boston in July, but that's just kind of ongoing projects.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Mike,
Are
you're
you
you're off to vacation next week, huh?
I am, yes. I am looking. We do family trip this time every year up to Madeline Island, and it's
Sounds super.
yeah, it's nice. I sit in a hammock typically and let my kids cook, and
I hope the smoke has cleared out by then.
I
And
know,
beautiful skies and yeah.
yeah, we look like New York here for a few days.
Oh boy, that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So very much looking forward to a little downtime next week, but we will be. Well, let's see, is it next week? What's our date?
I think that's
Uh,
June 23rd. Yeah.
yeah, yep. So it'll be the week after that I'll be there, but we'll be prepping for that. Um,
Oh, okay. It's the week
next
after
week as
you'll be
well.
in
So
in
yeah,
Madeline.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm anticipating it so much that I'm,
You you moved it up
I'm a
a week in
week.
your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a week ahead. Yes.
That's the sign of looking forward to a vacation right there.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, something will come up, Mike. It always does. So next Friday, I'm sure
Yeah, it always does. Yes, we'll answer
something new to talk about. Yep.
we'll do it next week as well. Send us your questions, folks. We'll be happy to answer your most challenging research question of the week. You can send it to me at mike@graypaperlegal.com. That's gray with an A, graypaperlegal.com. And be very happy to answer your challenging research questions on the show.
Sounds
Karen,
great.
thanks a lot.
Take care. Have a good week.
Take care.
Yep.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.